Hello and welcome to Itron Utility Week, Engerati studio here, and I'm joined by Annette Gardiner, who's the VP of Gas Strategic Development. Annette, firstly, welcome. Thanks for making the time. At the end of a really packed two-day schedule, so it's sometimes good to take a breather. And Annette, we were talking a little bit off air, and I think it'd be good, for the sake of the rest of the content of the interview, is just for you to talk a little bit about your experience within the gas sector, because you're new at Itron, you're 1 month in, and just tell us a little bit about where you came from and not why you're here, but your experience in that world.
Absolutely. So I've been in the gas utility business for over 25 years. I started as a transmission engineer at Mishcon and moved on to Semco Energy, where I ran rates and regulatory affairs and engineering and operations for a number of years. That gave me the background when the opportunity arose to be the president of New Mexico Gas Company for almost 7 years. Followed by that, I did a year and a half with Consumers Energy, and so I bring a very broad background in the natural gas industry with me to Itron. And so now I feel very good about taking all of that industry knowledge and experience and looking for ways to make our industry safer, to operate more efficiently, and to be able to move what the customers need, what our utility companies need, and where Itron's focus is together so that we can move forward focusing on safety.
So your experience of almost being on the ground, where you started your career, going all the way up to the top, where you're running a gas utility and all of that, can you just use that background to bring to life some of the use cases that can potentially be solved or need to be solved within the gas network? Because we captured the Openway Riva demo.
Fantastic.
But again, I always find that that's just a technical demo. It'd be great to hear from your point of view what the outcome is at the operational end by enabling those.
Right. So I'd like to start with safety, because first and foremost in the gas industry, that's what comes to mind first. So one of the ways that we could use the Riva technology is to use methane sensors in, say, an apartment building. Obviously, the incidents in New York come to mind where people smelled gas for days but didn't call it into the utility. So you could have a sensor detecting methane. It could send a signal automatically without ever having to go directly to a human being and shut a gas valve so that you cut off service, and at the same time simultaneously contact the gas utilities so they're aware of the situation and that they send a crew out. That sort of safety enhancement would be, I think, something tremendous to give us a comfort level that we had smart devices that could make those decisions and take those actions and protect lives. So that's one way I see it being very useful.
And in that particular use case, is that something that, from your experience of running a gas distribution network, that it could quite easily be justified as part of an operational expense, because it has an expense, because you need to roll out sensors everywhere. So how does that, how do you justify the investment, and where does the investment come from?
Right. And so the investment would be a recovery in a rate case. And so you would have to justify that it had a true safety benefit to it. I think that as we have different events around the country, different safety events, regulators understand the value of having safeguards for safety. So I think that if you make a case that the cost is justified in the benefit of avoiding these sorts of incidents, that you could do a pretty good job of justifying why something like that would be necessary and why it would make sense to recover it in rates.
And if we can walk through some of the other use cases, because I had great fun at your demo holding up a methane thing, and it locked everything off, so that's the safety use case.
Right.
But one of the other things is about gas quality and ensuring that. How does the need for that again translates itself into a gas operator?
Absolutely. Well, a couple things come to mind. First is therm billing. Some utilities in the United States are billing on a basis of therms, and they use an average therm unit across their system or a portion of their system to bill customers. So there's a use case there if there's a need or a customer demand to have billing on actual therms. That could be a good use case for that.
And this would be, for example, a commercial customer where the actual heat energy is important, right?
Exactly.
If I'm cooking at home, I couldn't care less.
Correct.
Or I'm less sensitive to it.
It would be a much smaller magnitude and scale.
And then would that be something where you could actually have a notion of almost premium pricing, where you say, okay, we can guarantee this baseline now because we've got these sensors? Because, I mean, how is this measured at the moment?
Well, usually gas is pipeline quality gas. And so that has a minimal span or range of BTU content. But as different things come on, like biomethane, which has a much lower BTU content, comes onto the system, or say a local producer that might have heavy liquids that would have a very high BTU content. A nice way of using a sensor device like that would be if the gas quality deviated too much, that you could shut a valve and not take it from those sources, not take the gas onto the system from those sources. Because if BTU swings too much in terms of value, you have to recalibrate equipment and make sure that you're adjusting to an appropriate BTU level.
Because it's very physical, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, because unlike electricity, where electrons are fungible, they're the same all over the universe, right? Gas isn't.
Right, gas is not. Gas quality matters.
It matters. So again, I mean, those are the two other key things that we've discussed. But off air, you mentioned that there are another two areas that what has been done here with OpenWay Riva and the gas side of things. I mean, can we just dive into those as well?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I thought would make an interesting application is when you're doing an asset management review. So you could bundle a few different sensors together. For example, put a sensor on a test station and you could monitor your cathodic protection via the pipe to soil rating. You could put another detector on detecting pressure fluctuations if you had a restriction in your pipe. And you could put another detector on methane around different points in your system and determine leaks. And so you could take all of that information back, analyze it, and you would know whether you have leaks, where you have deteriorating, corroding pipe, and where you have possible pressure constrictions, and it could help you, without ever sending anyone out to the field, make a determination of what pipe should be prioritized to be replaced first.
And I would imagine it also allows you to become a little bit more predictive, because when I was playing the acting out the corroding pipe by turning that variable resistor, I would imagine that over time with all of these sensors you can see a pattern and you can say, well, this section of pipe is corroding at an abnormal rate, so why don't we do a preemptive piece of maintenance rather than waiting for it to go past that?
Absolutely, which speaks directly to pipeline integrity management and making sure that you are prioritizing and replacing segments of pipe that are deteriorating more rapidly.
And based on your experience, where you were running the utility, it must be a significant chunk of your cost base as well, right?
Pipeline integrity management? Absolutely, yes. It's a significant investment that's made every year in terms of determining whether or not your pipe in high consequence areas. That's the other nice thing. You could focus on a high consequence area, which is where you would have most of your integrity management dollars spent, and look at the cathodic protection deterioration. But absolutely, it's a significant portion of your operating budget to ensure that you're meeting pipeline integrity requirements.
So it must be, again, it seems to me, and I may be making this overly simplistic, that why wouldn't you be putting these sensors in? Why wouldn't you want this? And I'm going to ask a very glib question. It seems so obvious that you would want this. Why isn't everybody doing it? I mean, just from having sat at the top of a gas distribution utility. What are some of the barriers? What's some of the inertia?
Well, part of this is new.
Right.
Part of this is brand new technology.
Right.
The gas industry tends to be somewhat conservative. So getting out there, getting examples in place, showing that it works better than other available technologies for making these changes, and getting that certainty that the investment is going to be worthwhile. But I think that will be coming very shortly as the open-way Riva, the Internet of Things, the sensors, operating smart devices across
and
that.
The price point of these sensors is also coming down. So,
absolutely.
So sometimes you're not. Yeah.
And the nice thing is that they're plug-and-play sensors. So if somebody else, another partner or another actor in the industry, comes up with a great sensor, great device to use, it's something that could easily be brought into the system and added to augment what would already be available.
And so, as we're coming to the end of our time, is there any other use case that you guys have been working on as well, or those seem to be the primary ones? Certainly, the ones that I've seen from the demo.
Yeah, definitely. Methane sensing, pressure sensing, BTU or therm sensing. Those are the key aspects.
And if I can bring it a little bit more back down to you, how has it been from going from client side to supply side, and has it been somewhat of an eye opener for you that actually the challenges that are happening at the vendor side with this rapid pace of technology and so on?
Well, I have the benefit of having done my first project with Itron in 1997.
Right.
So I've known
so
the team for a very
really
long
well.
time,
right.
very high respect and comfort level. But I find it really an invigorating challenge, looking at the industry from a different viewpoint where I can give back in a different way. So I'm very excited about applying what I've learned over these 25 plus years in a way that moves the industry forward.
And I'm sure Itron are already benefiting from that. It must be great to have someone with your experience on board in the team. And Annette, thank you ever so much for taking the time to be here. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
talking with you as well.
And thank you as well for watching. This has been our final interview at Itron Utility Week, and it's been a great pleasure. I hope you enjoyed this interview series, and thanks again for watching.
Done?